right. Well, it's past Farron's bedtime.
It is way past my bedtime. It is like a bazillion o'clock.
Farron's an old lady now.
I am. I go to bed at like 9 o'clock when I can help it.
It's crazy. I remember a time when you used to tell me that it was wrong to go to bed before like midnight.
And then I got really tired, and I can't figure out how to stop being tired, and so I just do what the old body says as far as sleep goes, at least most of the time. Sometimes I force it to stay up late, but...
Yeah. So we're going to be yawning a lot, and also you can't tell this maybe from our voices, but we're also going to be sweating a lot.
I was going to say, you can't hear it.
But it's 1,000
But
degrees.
it's about 1,000 degrees in here, so,
I'm going to look at the weather and tell you it is midnight. Like, I should have this posted already. I don't, because I am who I am. But it is currently 12:03 a.m. and it is 85 degrees outside.
And it is about 107 in the house.
That's what it feels like. Feels like 107. So,
It was literally 107 today.
it was.
In the outside world.
Yeah, it was really bad. And so, we're all hot and miserable and tired.
Yeah.
So, best of luck.
So, any fun stories other than the story that we're telling tonight?
Well, I mean, I don't know how fun it is, but I got a part-time job in, like, a retail shop, right? And I've never worked retail before. Like, in my youth, I worked in fast food, and I've worked in government jobs, and, you know, now I teach, but I've never done retail.
No.
And all told, I mean, it's super boring.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's
not hard.
It's not hard, and there's not very many people who come into the store, but it's like, I'm constantly having to find something to do, and I hate finding something to do.
Yeah.
I mean, at school, it's like the complete opposite, where I have so much to do that I can't get it done, and I'm like all constantly like overwhelmed and overstimulated. And then like this job is the complete opposite, but like it's also the kind of job where like even if everything's done, you still have to find something to do. Like, and so
it sounds like I would peel my skin off.
Yeah. I mean, I'll look at the clock thinking, I've been here for 12 hours, right? And it'll have been like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And so tonight, because we've been dealing with shoplifters, because apparently that's just what people do.
There's nothing else to do in town, so why not?
Shoplift stuff. And like the other night, there seemed to be a ton of people in the store that had to have security called on them and things. But tonight, the supervisor that was there was like, so what do you know about the characteristics, or what do you know about shoplifters or something? And I was just like, nothing. I'm a high school math teacher.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So she's like showing me in the dressing room all of the places that I should look for where people have stuck like security tags and things. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm loving.
No. It doesn't sound like a good time.
And like the other night, there were 2 separate instances where people had gone in there and filled up their baskets with like $200 worth of stuff, got up to the cash register, and had literally, one of them had 47 cents on her like prepaid card.
It's about how much I have in my bank account, but I'm also not going and filling up baskets full of stuff.
Right, and I have complete sympathy for people who, you know, are down on their luck. Mm-hmm. And there have been times in our lives when we've been down on our luck. Oh, yeah. But on those times when I was literally counting pennies to put gasoline in my car, I was not going to the store and trying to buy $200 worth of clothes.
Right.
And so I don't understand, and it's frustrating, and it almost makes me wish it was time to go back to school.
That's sad.
It's so sad. Yeah. I had one of my former students come in tonight buying baby things because she's pregnant. But she's an adult now, so,
yes.
you know. And then this other kid walked in tonight and he was like, "Why do I know you?" And I was like, "I don't know. Was I your math teacher at some point?" Mm-hmm. I wasn't, but he just had seen me at school. So, but it was pretty funny. So anyway, that's my funness. Oh, I also started taking my ADHD medication again.
Yeah.
And it makes my mouth so dry. And so I have been drinking tons of water, which I mean, I guess good because I should be drinking tons of water, but it's like necessary because my mouth is so dry. So, what about you?
Nothing exciting. I just realized that is today still Tuesday?
No, it ended 8 minutes ago.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, was today Tuesday?
Yeah, and that reminds me that I'm going to have to use a freeze streak on my Duolingo.
I'm going to have to take my Ozempic right after this.
Oh, yeah, because you do that on recording nights.
Yes.
But, like...
But I completely forgot about it.
Like, with this job, like, I don't get out until, like, 9:30. And then have to drive home. Plus, tonight I had to get everybody food from, like, every different restaurant. It was just a crazy day. But, anyway. I don't know what she has.
I think it's a thumbtack.
There's a kitten. I mean, okay. Not like a baby kitten. Like a year-old kitten, but she looks so tiny.
It's not even the kind of thumbtack that I thought it was, but it is a thumbtack.
Is playing with a thumbtack. So, Farron had to get up and take care of that. Because that would be dangerous if she ate it. And also, I don't want it stuck in my foot later.
No.
I really don't want it stuck in Bear's foot either, because then I'd have to deal with that.
Right.
Well.
But no, I have nothing going on right now, so I have no stories.
Alright.
I washed my hair.
Great job.
I know.
You did. You washed your hair. Well,
I washed my hair. I got some gas and some yarn.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you went and did errands earlier. Well, good. You needed more yarn because you don't have enough.
Well, I needed frog yarn and duck yarn.
I hope that someday we are able to take a picture of all of the yarn that Farron has, just so you guys can get an idea of the yarn hoarding situation.
One day when we have a place to set it all up. It's in various boxes right now.
It's like that. Remember that picture of like that Oklahoma Joanne or whatever that was just the wall of yarn?
Yeah.
That's going to be what we take a picture of for your room.
Hey, I'm not even upset about that.
All right. If anybody knows any contractor people that'd like to do us a solid, build Farron a wall of yarn.
Build me a wall for my yarn.
Yep. The world is on fire.
The world is on fire.
So there's that.
Yeah.
I guess that's all. You wanna do this thing?
I guess we can do this thing. It's kind of late, so.
Alright. Well, tonight's story is not as fun as the Mothman.
No.
No.
Not much is as fun as the Mothman.
Yeah, and it was funny because that was the last story I did. My brain said that was the last story that we did.
No.
But it's not, because you did one.
I did a gross one.
You did a gross one. This one might be grosser.
Yeah.
So, because, again, this may or may not be played on the radio, I'm just going to give you a trigger warning that it involves children and sexual assault and murder. Okay? If it's not your cup of tea, we'll see you next week. But, so,
If you can stomach it, stick around.
yeah. So tonight we are going to talk about the yogurt store murders.
Oh, that's funny. I had not recently, but I have considered in the past doing this one.
Okay, so you know this story.
Only vaguely.
Okay. Well, here we go. So, it's Friday, December 6th, 1991, in Austin, Texas. And at 7 p.m., 17-year-old Eliza Thomas pulled up at her job at the shop. I can't believe it's yogurt.
What?
Yeah. Which I guess is 1991. Maybe frozen yogurt was new.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know when frozen yogurt came on the scene.
I don't know. But I can't believe it's yogurt.
Can't believe it's not ice cream, y'all.
And it was... I just said not because I was thinking I can't believe it's not better. Which I think is literally what every other podcast says about when they hear that.
Yes. But,
I'm sorry, I'm fidgeting a lot.
I love frozen yogurt.
Yeah, oh, that place isn't open anymore, huh?
Huh?
The one that was in that strip mall, we only went there like one time. It was like a self-serve frozen yogurt place. And you could put like the toppings and stuff on it.
Yeah, that place has been closed for years now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anywhere to get
Not where we live.
Yogurt. It's been like 30 years, but I remember there used to be TCBY in Roswell. Mm-hmm. And I think that was there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there was also a Quiznos.
There's not a TCBY. I don't know. Is TCBY even a place anymore?
I don't know.
But there's not a frozen yogurt shop anywhere near us.
Yeah.
What is the one in Ruidoso? Is that a TCBY? The one that's at Schlotsky's?
Oh, at Schlotsky's. Yeah, it is.
So TCBY is still a thing.
Yeah. And because I was trying to think. I felt like we saw one somewhere, but maybe it was... Oh, it's the one in Albuquerque that's next to the taco place.
And I can't remember what that one's called, but it's not a TCBY.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, Albuquerque's got quite a few frozen yogurt shops. But
we just never do it.
No.
And we were going to do it the last time we went, but then Bear
said he was full.
Yeah.
So...
Well, anyway. So, I can't believe it's yogurt.
Can't believe it's yogurt, y'all.
And this was a chain. I don't know if it still is a chain, but it was a chain. And it was in a little strip mall, like in northern Austin. And Austin at this time was like way smaller than it is now. I mean, it had like 400,000 people in it, which like to us is
a lot.
But these days there's like 2 million people.
Yeah.
So that's, in fact... I took a picture, and I know that you people listening to me cannot see this picture. I'm going to show it to Farron, though. This is 2014 to 2024, the skyline.
Yeah.
How much it's changed. So, you can imagine from 1991 to 2025 how much it's changed. So, Northern Austin. I can't believe it's yogurt. 17-year-old Eliza Thomas pulls up. I thought 7 p.m. was late to start a shift when I was reading this.
Yeah, but maybe they close at like 11.
They do. They close at 11. So she shows up at 7 o'clock. She has a little green Volkswagen Carmen Ghia.
I love Carmen Ghias.
I know you do. So I knew you'd like that. She was going to work alone until 8 p.m. when her friend and coworker, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison... Oh my God. Hold on. Because I wrote it wrong, and now I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Oh, it's Harbison. Okay. All right. Jennifer Harbison pulled up in her little blue Chevy S10. They were scheduled to work together until the shop closed at 11 that night. Remember before COVID when businesses would stay open past like 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they pretended that they started closing early because of COVID, even though most of them didn't believe in COVID.
Yeah, and then they never started staying open late again.
Yeah.
And now you have to try to get everything done by like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Especially the places where Walmart closes at 9 now. Like, ours at least stays open till 11, but, like, there are so many places where Walmart closes at 9.
Yeah, I can't imagine. There were some in Albuquerque that closed at like 8.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine, especially like for the normal working person,
Exactly.
getting off at 5 o'clock and then having to try to get all of that stuff done before 8 o'clock, plus dinner, plus whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems so crazy. No, I'm not. Okay. So, anyway, they close at 11. So, meanwhile, Jennifer's little sister Sarah, who is 15, and her best friend Amy Ayers, who is 13, were at the North Cross Mall. And since this is early 80s, you know, malls were new and cool, and that's where everybody was hanging out. So
Malls were radical back then.
They were. And now they're just, like, empty. In fact, I think I was reading that this particular mall is, like... She's playing with my watch.
I just don't know why she's under there.
She's playing with my watch. Is, like, a ghost town. There's, like, an ice skating rink in it and, like, one store or something. And otherwise, it's just, like, a skeleton of a mall.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Malls... It's really hit or miss these days.
It really is. And
either it's a decent mall or it's like a dead mall.
And maybe because I'm like an 80s, 90s kid, I love a mall.
Yeah.
And
plus, like, for us, we didn't really have a mall growing up.
Right.
So for us, it was like a big deal to go out of town and go to the mall.
Yeah, it was always like super fun. And I still love to go out of town and go to the mall. There are some times, just because of the way and how scary the world is now, that, like, I don't necessarily want to be in a mall at, like, busy Christmas shopping time, or, you know, some other large event kind of time when people know there's going to be a lot of people in one area at a time. But in general, just on a regular day, I love a mall.
But I assume that online shopping has killed the mall. But at the same time, it's like, what about the instant gratification? What if I need it right now?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't want to wait to get it off the internet. I want to be able to go to a store and buy the thing.
Yeah, or, like, try on shoes or, you know, whatever. Especially, like, with this kid, his feet grow, and I don't know what size of shoe to order him. And, like, it's nice to be able to go somewhere and be able
try
to do
on
that.
a shoe.
But, and now they're just basically, like, indoor walking tracks for old people, so... Yeah. Anyway, the mall, honestly, doesn't really have any place in the story other than that's where Sarah and Amy were.
Okay.
We just went on a little tangent there. So Jennifer...
That's what we're here for.
Right. Jennifer had dropped them off on her way to work and agreed to go back and pick them up at 9 o'clock. And when she picked them up, she took them back to the yogurt shop with her to finish out the night, and then they were going to go to the Harbison house for a sleepover. Around 9:30, Maria Thomas, who is Eliza's mother, came into the yogurt shop. Eliza happened to be on the phone with her little sister, Sonora. She was trying to convince her to ride her bike to the shop. And Sonora was staying with their dad, and she was like, I can't go. Dad's not home to tell me whether I can go or not. And so Eliza put her mom on the phone with Sonora and went back to work. At the same time, like around the same time, a 52-year-old former military policeman turned security office owner came into the shop, and his name was Daryl Croft. Now, another quick side note. This man's name is Daryl. His name is spelled D-E-A-R-L, like Pearl with a D. Daryl. But it's Daryl. So, Daryl. And his other brother, Daryl. Okay, so Daryl Croft. Sorry, there's a kitty on the same, not tiny kitty, is underneath our table where we have our microphone, beating up my Fitbit, and she is beating me up now. Okay, so anyway, he was not there on official business. He was there with a couple of friends for dessert, but he had left his friends in the car, and he had just run inside to order everybody yogurt, and then he was going to take it to go. His recollection of the shop at the time was that there were two girls behind the counter, which were Jennifer and Eliza. Eliza's mom was standing at the counter. There was a boy and a girl sitting at a booth. another couple standing at the counter looking at the menu, and another man in line who he described as mid-20s, big nose, wearing a green, like, military fatigue-looking jacket. He was white, and he was also very fidgety. And he was, like, kept letting people go in front of him. Mm-hmm. And so I think he had even tried to have Daryl go in front of him, but Daryl was like getting off vibes from this guy. Mm-hmm. And so he told him, no, you go ahead. And so the guy went up to the counter and ordered a can of soda. And Jennifer put it in a paper sack. Eliza rang it up. And then Daryl went up to order his yogurt. He also said that while he was in line with this man, the man asked him if the car outside with the lights on top was his, and Daryl said yes, it was. And the man asked him if he was a police officer, and Daryl told him, no, I own a security company. And he thought it was strange that the man had even noticed his car, let alone felt the need to ask him if he was a policeman. So after this guy gets
trying to feel things out.
Right. And I can't remember if it was in the book that I read or if it was on another podcast, but Daryl said that it was almost like he was letting all of these customers go in front of him to give himself time to be able to talk to Daryl and ask him this question.
Oh, yeah. I figured he was trying to, like, linger for, like, other nefarious reasons.
And who knows? But that was kind of what was said. So, after the guy gets his soda, he went around the back side of the counter and went to the back of the store. And so when Daryl got up to order his yogurt, he asked Eliza, like, where did that dude go? And because it was weird because he went to the back of the store.
I'm afraid she's going to knock her microphone.
I know. I'm going to take this and send her on her merry way. Go on, bud. Okay, so anyway, guy gets a soda. He goes around the counter, goes to the back of the shop. And Daryl's like, where did that guy go? Mm-hmm. And Eliza told him that the man had mentioned needing to go to the bathroom, and she told him that they were in the back. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the guy went.
Yeah.
So Daryl, again, said the guy seemed off. And so he was trying to linger a little bit to wait for the guy to come back from the bathroom. And so he was talking to Eliza's mom, and he, but then his yogurt was done. There were people in the car waiting for the yogurt. Mm-hmm. It's basically ice cream. It's going to melt. So he is like, I can't wait anymore. And so he takes it and he leaves. Around that same time, Maria, Eliza's mom, also left. Right after that, James Thomas and his wife, so Eliza's father and stepmother, came in. And they chatted with Eliza for a few minutes. Neither of them remember seeing the strange man in the green jacket, and they were there for like 15 to 20 minutes. That doesn't mean that he wasn't there. They just may not have seen him because he didn't stand out to them.
Right.
So at 10:42, which is according to the records that they got off of the cash register, Eliza made their last sale of the night. Tim Stryker and Margaret Sheehan had stopped by on their way home. They said that they noticed only 2 other customers in the store. They said it was 2 people in hooded jackets sitting across from each other in the booth closest to the cash register. And they said that they couldn't even tell if it were men or women, but just based on their size, they assumed they were men. Mm-hmm. They couldn't remember seeing any food or drinks on the table between the men. Eliza helped them while Jennifer was busy cleaning the dining area. So it's also kind of assumed that at this time the 2 younger girls, Sarah and Amy, had gone to the back room where the sink was to start washing the dishes, because one of the things that I had read was that Jennifer and Sarah's mom had even told Sarah when they were leaving the house to go do all of these things, that she and Amy should help Jennifer and Eliza clean up so that they could get out of there faster.
Right.
And so They did find the girls' pizza box in the back, and it looked like somebody had started the dishes, so they think that's where the girls were at this time. Let's see. So Margaret says she looked at the time when they left, and it was 10:47. The shop had a rule that the girls could lock the front door and turn the close sign over 10 minutes before closing. And this would mean that, like, they would allow anybody still in there to finish their yogurt, but it prevented anybody new from coming again. So after the store was cleaned and the money is deposited into a floor safe, and this isn't what happened this night, but just in general for the rules of the store, whoever was closing the store, they don't have a manager in the store.
Okay.
Like, it's literally just these two little girls. So what they would do is they would clean up, and then they would put the money into a floor safe that was in the office. And then they would take the key, because you would have to lock the door with the key from both sides. So when they were locking it, just to be able to clean or whatever, they had the key in the lock. And so they would take the key out of the lock, go on the other side, lock it from the outside, put the key in an envelope, and then slide the envelope underneath the door for the manager to get the next morning. Which just seems like a wild way to do business. Right. But this is 1991. So I guess it wasn't strange to have two children closing your store for you. I don't know. It just seems crazy, especially that late at night. So, where am I at? Okay, so the men at the booth were still there when Tim and Margaret left.
Okay.
So now I'm going to tell you about the girls.
Okay.
So Jennifer and Sarah Harbison were the only two children of Mike Harbison and Barbara Sirachi. I don't know. It's an Italian last name. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
The girls had been born in New Boston, Texas. And as a family, they had all moved to Austin so that Mike could attend college, and then they moved back to New Boston. However, Barbara missed the larger city and the opportunities it provided, and so when the girls were 5 and 2, she decided to divorce Mike and move the girls back to Austin. Not long after she moved back to Austin, she met a technician for Dell Computers named Frank, and they got married.
Okay.
Barbara and the girls all had to convert to Catholicism before the wedding, and they ended up attending Catholic school up to high school, so through middle school. But then they wanted to go to public school. In 1991, when this happened, they were both attending Sidney Lanier High School. Jennifer was a senior and was on the varsity track team. She was the president of her school's FFA and had just been nominated as FFA Queen.
Ooh.
I know. And our entire lives, this was Future Farmers of America. I think these days they still use the letters, but I don't think that's what it stands for anymore because they've moved away from it strictly being ag related. So I can't speak to that, but I have heard that it doesn't actually stand for that, but because that's like the known name of it, they keep calling it that. So anyway, she had a steady boyfriend named Sammy. She was working at I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, or ICBY, kind of like TCBY, but it was ICBY, to help her dad make the payments on her new Chevy S10. And the deal for that was that she had to help make the payments, and she also had to drive Sarah around for her to get the new truck. So Sarah was a sophomore at Sidney Lanier High School. She played basketball and volleyball. She was active in student council, and she also participated in FFA. She and Jennifer were raising lambs to show at the Austin Livestock Show and Rodeo in the spring, and she also had a new steady boyfriend named Mike. Eliza Thomas was the older of two girls born to James and Maria Thomas. Her younger sister was named Sonora. Her parents divorced when she was 7, and they shared custody until Eliza was 14, and then they allowed her to choose who she wanted to live with. So she lived with her father and his new wife for a little while, but in July of 1991, she moved back in with her mom. So Nora, Eliza's little sister, was 13. She was staying with her dad, and his house was just a few blocks away from the yogurt shop, so Sonora would often ride her bike to the shop to bring things to Eliza that she forgot or just to hang out with her. And Sonora described Eliza as popular and was friendly and chatty, and so this job at the yogurt shop was like perfect for her. She was raising wait, hold on. I'm not there yet. She was also in FFA. She had also been nominated as FFA Queen.
Okay.
And so she and Jennifer were excited because they were both nominated for this. She was raising a pig for the livestock show. He was a 254-pound pig named Stony. Remind me to tell you about Stony at the end because I forgot to write it down.
Okay.
So her mother, Maria, was Italian-born and was like, I did not raise a country girl. Like, she assumed this was a phase that she would grow out of. Mm-hmm. And Sarah and Jennifer's mom was kind of the same way because, like, this was a woman who was like, I don't want to live in the country. I want to live in the city. I don't know why my girls are, like, country. Mm-hmm. But they were. That was just their aesthetic, I guess. Let's see. So Eliza was actually working 2 jobs. She worked at the yogurt shop, but then she would also escort a 9-year-old boy to gym lessons twice a week. It's like, how do I get that job?
Right.
That seems easy. In addition to the yogurt shop, I just already said that. According to another employee at the shop, Eliza was always trying to make more money because her mom didn't make very much. But she also spent a lot of her money maintaining her bright green 1971 Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. And her mom said that car was her pride and joy. And she knew how to work on it, and she had even asked for car parts for Christmas.
Nice.
Her father said that she had dreams of attending Texas A&M and becoming a veterinarian. Amy Ayers was the youngest of the group and one of Sarah's best friends. She was only 13 and attended Burnett Middle School. She was the younger of 2 children born to Pamela and Bob Ayers. Her brother's name is Sean. The family is described as being quiet, reserved, and religious. Amy is described as being a private girl who kept to herself. Despite being so young, though, she had been given like special permission to be an active junior member of the Lanier High School FFA. So that's kind of how she even met Sarah to become friends with her, was through FFA. Bob Ayers described his daughter as all cowgirl. She spent a lot of her childhood on a ranch and had been riding horses since she was 3. Sometimes she liked to leash up her pig and take it for a walk.
As one should.
Yeah. She also wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. So, she seems to be the only one that was, like, raised as a cowgirl.
Yeah.
But they were all, that's kind of, like, why they were all friends, because it was like cowboy girls. Cowgirls.
Cowboy girls.
Cowboy girls.
Yes.
Clearly, I'm a cowboy girl.
Clearly.
All right, so back to December 6th, which is not a good day. So around 11:45-ish, George Barney, who owned a business in the same strip mall, noticed smoke around the electric panel on one of his walls. And as he opened the back door, he happened to see a police car driving towards him, because around the same time, a rookie patrol officer named Troy Gay had also noticed smoke in the air and drove over to see where it was coming from. He called the fire in at 11:48 p.m., and at this time, it was assumed that it was probably a normal kitchen fire. He saw that the store was closed, the lights were off. He thought maybe somebody left a burner on a stove, and it caused a fire.
Yeah.
So, the fire department sent 4 units to the shop. Renee, Hector Garza, and David DeVoe were in charge of, like, going into the store to find the source of the fire. Mm-hmm. There were other firefighters that were, like, fighting the fire, but they were, like, going into the store. So they noted that the front door was locked and used a crowbar to open it. The smoke was so thick in the shop that they had to crawl on their hands and knees, and they found the fire in a back storage room. The hottest flames started about halfway up the southern wall where they assumed the stove would be. Mm-hmm. But because of the smoke and then the steam from the water hitting the fire, it was really hard to see anything in the store. They were able to get the fire out pretty quickly, though, but Garza said that DeVoe shook him because of their masks and low visibility. They were mostly communicating through, like, gesturing or, like, touching. And he said DeVoe shook him and asked him, "Is that a foot?" And they looked over, and they found one of the girls' bodies.
Oh, geez.
And then they kind of backed up, and they found another body. And so Garza runs out to talk to his battalion chief and tells him there's 2 bodies in there. They're both nude, and they're both children. And so they are like, okay, we need a homicide detective and we need an arson investigator. So, like I said, Austin was small for, what it is now. And there was, like, no crime. Like,
right.
It was, like, relatively, like, small crimes at this time. And so Sergeant John Jones was the only homicide detective out that night. So he receives the call, and coincidentally, he also happened to have a news crew doing a ride-along with him that night. Mm-hmm. And the news crew was, like, bored out of their minds.
Yeah.
During this night, because there wasn't anything going on.
Well, they're not going to be bored anymore.
No. And they were looking forward to heading to Houston the next night, thinking that there would be more excitement. Mm-hmm. So, as Jones is heading towards the scene, he's updated that they found a 3rd body, and then again that they found a 4th body. All 4 girls had been stripped completely naked. They were gagged and bound with their hands behind their backs with articles of their own clothing. Their other clothing was found folded and stacked against a wall. I think 2 of the girls' underwear was missing, and Amy's leather jacket was also missing. They had all been shot in the back of the head once, all except for little Amy. So, Jennifer, Sarah, and Eliza were found, like, stacked. And I know, it's icky.
It's very icky.
I think Sarah was kind of off to the side, but I even hate using this terminology, but she was still, like, kind of part of the, like, pile, or however we want to refer to that awfulness. So, Amy was found farther away towards the bathrooms. Jennifer, Sarah, and Eliza were burned beyond recognition. Because Amy was found farther away, she had less severe burns, but she also had something around her neck, so it's believed that she was also strangled. Yeah. And she was also shot twice. So, the first shot, and also how all the other girls were shot, came from a .22 caliber pistol to the back of the head, so like execution style. But that perhaps she didn't die right away, and then she was shot a second time with a .38, and this shot went through the back of her head and exited her cheek.
Yikes.
Yep. So I listened to the Mile Higher podcast, and they...
Kendall Ray.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of them before.
Her regular channel, or her original channel, or whatever, is True Crime with Kendall Ray. Oh, okay. But she also does a podcast with her husband, which is the Mile Higher podcast. Oh, okay. Because they live in Colorado.
Yeah. I figured Colorado because Mile Higher, but...
well, yeah.
This was the first time I had ever listened to them. But they said that Amy was still alive when she was found and then died a short time later. Yeah. I tried to corroborate that, and I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's so weird when there's like one source that says something and you can't find it anywhere else. Yeah. I find that a lot just in general when I'm researching for stories. I'm just like, just for any information, because people will have like so much information and like detailed background stuff and whatnot, and I'm just like, where did y'all get this information? Because I'm not finding it.
Because I even like Googled specifically those words trying to corroborate it, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. So I don't know where they got that information from. I'm not saying that they were wrong. Yeah. I cannot find another source that gives that information. So I don't know if that's true or not. Mm-hmm. Either way, it's terrible.
But yeah, I think Kendall's podcast was the first time that I heard about the Gannon Stout case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I need a drink. Okay, so horribly, Amy was also sexually assaulted. I think that it's unclear because of, like, the horrible conditions of the other girls' bodies, whether they were raped or not. I don't know if they've been able to figure that out, like, with new testing or whatever, but the crime scene investigators were able to extract DNA from an unknown male from Amy's vaginal swab.
Right.
And, like, Sergeant John Jones said that when he walked into the building, it was like everything was black and gray except for Amy, because she was farther away, and so she didn't get burned like the other ones did. So clearly this is a crime scene.
Yeah.
And it was also a fire, again, I think I said this already, that was assumed to be in an empty business. So when the firefighters showed up, I mean, that's what they thought. They didn't think to check for people because the store was closed, the lights were off. They just assumed it was, and then the fire was so hot that they had to use, like, an excessive amount of water to put it out. So the crime scene is just obliterated at this point. I mean, one, the fire, and then two, all of the water and the trampling around from the firefighters before they even found the girls. I think on the Mile Higher podcast as well, they had mentioned a quote from one of the firefighters that, like, they don't even know if, like, they may have accidentally stepped on the girls. Exactly. Because they couldn't see what was going on.
The smoke was so thick.
Yeah. And so, it was just, like, completely destroyed in there. And Sergeant John Jones, I had watched 48 Hours. He was interviewed on that. And he said that because of all of the smoke and the ash, it was, like, virtually impossible to take fingerprints. Because there just was no surface that was not just destroyed by something.
Yeah.
They did find, because I guess the front of the store wasn't really burned, I guess, because this fire was in the back room.
Right.
And so they were able to check the cash register, and they found that at 11:03, the cash register recorded a no sale, which is probably somebody pushing the button to open the cash drawer. There was about $450 missing, but there was a bank bag underneath the counter with cash in it that was left untouched, and it doesn't look like anybody even went into the office as far as they could tell. And so they were like, well, was this a robbery? And, like, I can't get on board with that.
It sounds more like an afterthought, or like somebody was trying to stage it as a robbery.
Right. Because, I understand that crime shows are not real, but, according to Criminal Minds, this would be, like, sexual sadism. Because remember the episode where there was the bank robber that was, like, stripping everybody?
Vaguely.
And so they were like, this isn't just a bank robber. Like, regular bank robbers aren't going to do this. And so if the motive was to rob the store, and there were at least two men, possibly three if we count the hinky guy who went to the bathroom earlier, 4 teenage girls would have been easy to rob.
Right.
I'm sure they would have just handed the money over, no questions asked, especially if both of those men were carrying guns. You don't systematically strip them completely naked, sexually assault them, and then start a fire to cover evidence over $450.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It sounds more like an afterthought, like, why not take the money, or like they were trying to stage something.
Right. Yeah, I think they went in there to kill at least Jennifer and Eliza, even if they didn't know that Sarah and Amy were there. I think that they went in there to kill those girls. So, as for the fire, I don't know how they determine things from fires.
No.
But they believe that it was started around 11:42 p.m. So, remember, the girls locked the door at like 10 till 11.
Yeah.
And then...
like about an hour before that.
Yeah. And then there was that no sale at 11:03. And then this is starting a fire at 11:42. So they had like an hour to do all of the horrible things that they did.
Right.
It's believed that the killers poured lighter fluid on some styrofoam cups in the storeroom and set them on fire. And I don't know if this is still the case, but styrofoam at this time was incredibly flammable and would burn extremely hot and then would melt and stick to whatever it was, like tar.
Right.
And this fire had been so hot that rungs on a ladder had been melted completely away. From the podcast Unsolved website, they said that there was another theory that the killers might have filled styrofoam cups with lighter fluid and placed them on or near the girls' bodies to increase the spread of the flames. But I don't think that that can be confirmed, because when I was watching 48 Hours, Sergeant Jones claimed that the girls' bodies were never tested for lighter fluid, because he even had thought that at some point they should have exhumed them to do that testing. I don't know if it would still be there, but
yeah, I don't know.
Just to check. They also gave a detail that I hadn't read anywhere else. They said that the killers had also contaminated the scene by putting chocolate syrup and like yogurt and toppings on and around the bodies of the girls. Whether it was just solely contamination or just for sadistic pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm probably never going to know that. So, whatever.
For funsies.
Yeah, for disgusting funsies. Well, whatever happened, they know that it had to have happened shortly after the doors were locked for the store. And this is just based on the evidence of how the girls were cleaning and where they stopped. Because the people who owned this chain had very, like, strict, like, steps for cleaning and an order for cleaning. And that Jennifer and Eliza were both very, like, good at following this. Like, they, always did the same things. So the chairs were stacked on all of the tables except for the table where the two men were sitting. The napkin dispensers were all filled except for the one where the two men were sitting. And so this indicates that Jennifer or Eliza, I think it was Jennifer, was kind of like cleaning around these men to get closed.
Yeah.
They also found a rag on the table, like one of the girls had been using it and had abandoned it mid-task because something had happened. The key was also still in the front door, so it wasn't like they had taken it out and gone out and then were accosted outside. It was like it probably happened right after those people left. So, I am not blaming anybody that was in that store that night. But there were people who came forward that were like, well, I didn't like the look of those guys, or I didn't like the look of that guy in the military jacket or whatever. And I was just thinking, I hope myself that if I were in a store late at night and it was children working and there was some creep in the store, that I would be like, do you want me to hang out until they're gone? Want
me to have a cop do a drive-by?
Yeah, do you want me to check on you in a minute? Or, I don't know. And I'm not saying, it's not their fault, but it just, I wish somebody had done that.
Yeah.
So, 8 days after the murders, police arrested a 16-year-old boy named Maurice Pierce for carrying a .22 pistol in the waistband of his jeans in the North Cross Mall. His friend Forrest Wellborn was also arrested. And because he was carrying a .22, they questioned him about the murders. He claimed that he let his friend Forrest borrow his gun and that Forrest was the one who shot the girls.
Okay.
Forrest vehemently denied this. And he said that on the night of the murders, he, Maurice, and their two friends, Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen, had stolen a car and driven to San Antonio for the weekend. He was like, we weren't even in town. I did not borrow this kid's gun. I did not shoot these people. We were committing
other crimes.
That's right. We were doing different crimes. A detective named Hector Polanco conducted the interviews, and he was known as maybe not using the best interview tactics. Plus, Maurice maybe had some, mental health issues. And so, but after the polygraphs were administered, even though Maurice had basically confessed that, he or his friend were part of it, the boys both passed their polygraphs, and they didn't have any evidence to actually tie them to the crime, and so they let them go. And, you know, I was thinking back to, like, How to Make a Murderer, or whatever that show is called. The Making of a Murderer, or... Remember that show on Netflix?
I'm just trying to remember what it's called. I think it's called Making a Murderer.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, I understand cops wanting to get confessions for crimes.
And that cops are allowed to lie and whatnot when they're interrogating people.
But when you have kids, like teenagers, and especially one of them that may or may not have mental health issues, like, those tactics aren't necessarily going to work.
No.
And so it was funny because I was thinking about this the other night about the, like, defund the police movement. Mm-hmm. And then the next morning you had, like, drawn your pictures. And so it was like we were on the same brainwave that night or something. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about it and about how, like, it's so, like, misinterpreted in the media. Because it's not that people want cops to go away. Because that would be crazy. We can't live in a lawless society. Mm-hmm. We would be back in, like, Lincoln County with Billy the Kid if that were the case. But the whole movement is just saying, like, hey, could we take some of the money that you use to buy brand new police cars every year? Or buy tanks every year, or whatever, and put some of that money into hiring some mental health professionals that can respond to some of these things or assist in some of these places where cops aren't trained. And, like, I'm not asking the cops to even be trained in these things. Like, they have their job, but, like, you know, let people who are trained in these things assist. And that way we don't have these problems. Or we have fewer of them, at the very least.
Yeah. It reminds me of, you know, the nephew on Making a Murderer or whatever, and then, like, Jesse Miss Kelly of the West Memphis 3.
Right. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And so, you know, just, like, promising these kids, like, you can go home if you'll just tell me that you did it. And these kids being like, okay, I want to go home, so I did it.
Mm-hmm. And, or they just, you know, want to tell the officer what they think the officer wants to hear.
Yeah.
Or,
you know, Maurice, he might have just been, like, telling him something because he thought it'd make him look cool. Mm-hmm. You know? And so, those kinds of situations need assistance from mental health professionals who can assist the police in those kinds of interrogations. But anyway, that's my soapbox moment.
Yes.
Alright, so anyway, those boys were let go. Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen were never questioned at this time. So, hundreds of tips were called in, and ridiculously, there were like 50 false confessions to this crime. Like,
I never understand false confessions.
Like, 50 written false confessions.
Yeah.
Not just people claiming to have done it, but writing down, I did this.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me because who wants to be famous so much that they want to be known as a murderer?
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've never understood false confessions that were not, like, and I'm not saying that it's okay, it just goes back to what you were saying, but, like, false confessions that were not coerced.
Right.
Like,
right.
Like, someone who's just like, yeah, I'm going to admit to this horrible crime.
Right. Well, because then they have to go through and waste resources.
Yeah, because
they
have
corroborate
to check
the stories.
These things out.
It hurts the families who are just trying to find the bad guy of who did this to their children. But it also is believed that old Detective Polanco was maybe coercing some of these confessions.
Yeah.
And so he was ultimately removed from the case. He was even fired from the police department at one point. So, the Austin police requested assistance from the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, as it was known in the 90s, and Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as the Texas Department of Public Safety, because they had a forensics lab at the time. Despite all of this help, no solid leads were coming up, so Guess who they started investigating next?
Oh, I don't know.
The PIBs.
Mm-hmm.
The persons in black.
Yes.
So they were like, satanic panic, guys.
Yes.
They might have done it. But of course that also didn't come up with anything. They had even raided this one girl's house because they had heard that she had all like this, like bones and stuff in her house.
Again, going back to the West Memphis 3.
Yeah. She did have bones in her house, but it was like rat bones.
Yeah.
And like artwork. It wasn't even anything. Let's see. I lost my place. I just thought it was funny that they were called
edgy
PIBs.
junk.
Persons in black.
Yes.
So there was a Mexican national who was arrested based on a sketch of a man who had been seen sitting outside the yogurt shop the night of the murders. He confessed, but then he later recanted, saying that he had been beaten into confessing. A serial killer from Texas named Kenneth Allen McDuff was questioned in prison because I guess he had been in prison and then he had been released due to overcrowding.
Yeah.
And so that's when this crime happened. And then he started murdering people again.
Maybe they should pick and choose better who they release due to overcrowding.
You know, you'd think. You'd be like, okay, what did you do? Oh, like, I raped and murdered a bunch of people.
Like,
what did you do? Oh, I sold some marijuana.
I was gonna say, like, maybe release the people who are in there because of, like, drug crimes.
Yeah.
Like,
not the murders.
or, like, burglary.
Right.
But not a serial killer.
Yeah. So, he had been put back in prison, and he was questioned, and he was just like, I didn't do it. If I had done it, I would tell you that I did it, just like I told you I did all of these other ones. He was like, I would be bragging to you about it.
I'm not one to shy away from telling you that I murdered somebody.
Right, I will tell you all about it. I think someday I'll have to look into his crimes, because I had never heard of him before. So I think, trying to remember where I heard it or read it. I don't remember. I didn't write it down. But that he did admit to these murders on the day of his execution. Mm-hmm. But it's believed that he did that as a ploy to stay his execution, which failed. He was executed that night. And he's ultimately been ruled out as a suspect. So the case went cold. In 1999, so 8 years later, the case was reopened with new investigators, going over all of the old case files. And the new investigators felt that their only real suspects were the 4 teenage boys. So Maurice Pierce, Forrest Welborn, Robert Springsteen, and Michael Scott. And they were all arrested and brought to Austin for questioning. And on that 48 Hours episode, because Sergeant Jones was no longer part of the case, he had been reassigned. But he was like so excited because he was like, oh, they must have new evidence or whatever. You know, they found something, you know, technology has changed, whatever. It was literally just based off of their original, like, confession, like Maurice's confession that they did it. So, they were all arrested and brought to Austin for questioning because they had all kind of scattered. I mean, it's 8 years later, so they're all in their 20s and stuff.
Right.
They questioned, I don't know about Robert Springsteen, but Michael Scott at least was questioned for like 20 hours over like 4 days. And he finally just confessed to the crime and implicated Robert Springsteen. So then Robert was told, hey, Michael confessed and said you were part of it.
Right.
And so he also confessed. Both, sorry, I skipped a place. The problem was that Michael's details were like, some of them are confused or not exactly what, like, lined up with the crime scene. And the men both recanted their confessions, claiming that after so many hours and so many days of questioning, they finally just broke down and told the investigators what they wanted to hear.
That happens. That's another coercion tactic.
Yeah. And not only that, but there is an actual picture taken from the security camera in the interrogation room showing one of the officers pointing a gun at Michael's head. And so, I don't know. So Maurice, Michael, and Robert were all indicted by a grand jury. The grand jury refused to indict Forrest Welburn, and he came up for indictment twice, and they refused to indict him both times. And he's the one from the very beginning that was like, we were off doing other crimes.
Yeah.
I was not there. Because I think in the original confession, or maybe it was this one, that Forrest was in the car, like he was the getaway driver. And so I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if we'll ever find out if it's true or not. But he was released from jail. So he was the first one out. The charges against Maurice were also eventually dropped for lack of evidence. And ballistics were tested on Maurice's .22, and they did not match the bullets from the crime scene. And a not so fun fact about Maurice is in 2010, he was pulled over, and I don't know exactly what the details are. I don't know if it was like a routine traffic stop or whatever, and he already had some mental health issues, and then after all of this, he was like scared of the cops or wary of the cops or whatever, and he made a bad decision, and he stabbed the officer in the neck, and so the officer killed him. So Maurice is no longer with us.
That's sad.
Yep. So Robert Springsteen was tried first. Their trials were separate, and they only tried him for the murder of Amy Ayers. And the reason for this is they thought, if he's acquitted of this crime, then we can try him for the other 3 murders later. So they didn't want double jeopardy issues for all of them. The only evidence that the state had was Michael's confession against Robert. And the defense was not allowed to present alternate suspects, such as the serial killer or any alternate, like any of the confessions that had come up during the investigation. But even without any evidence, really, Robert Springsteen was found guilty and was sentenced to death after 2 days of deliberation. Michael Scott's trial began in 2002. And the state relied solely on Michael's confession and Robert's confession against Michael. Again, they only charged him with the murder of Amy. He was also found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. And I don't know why one of them was sentenced to death and one of them was sentenced to life. Like, I don't know what the difference was there. I couldn't find that specifically. I didn't dive deep enough for that one.
Right.
But, naturally, as all convicted killers go, both men appealed their convictions. I mean, it's just one of your constitutional rights, or whatever. You can do that. Both men's convictions were overturned because their constitutional rights had been violated during their trials. Because you have the right to face your accuser in court. And although Robert's confession had been used against Michael and Michael's confession had been used against Robert, neither man was allowed to be questioned in the other's trial, meaning that they were not given the opportunity to face their accuser in court. And so they were both of their convictions were overturned, and they were both released from prison. They were not exonerated. They could still face retrial.
Right.
But these specific convictions were thrown out. So the district attorney decided to put off the retrial to gather more evidence. And in 2008, because of advancements in DNA testing, they decided to retest the DNA that they had found on Amy's body. They used something called YSTR, which, if I'm understanding correctly, is just based solely on the Y chromosome and can match any male in a familial line. And so this DNA strand was not a match to any of these 4 men. The police believed that there could have been a 5th person with them, but there's no evidence to support that other than they have this DNA that doesn't match these 4 guys.
Right.
So the sample is also so small in this type of testing that they couldn't even submit it to databases like CODIS for testing. They were able to submit it to a database that's specifically for YSTR samples that's run by the University of Central Florida. And it was matched to a profile that had been submitted by the FBI. Okay. And so the Austin police are like stoked because they're like, the FBI's got somebody that matches this DNA. So they called the FBI for a name, and the FBI refused to give them a name because they had submitted, I don't know, it was like some stupid law technicality where like the sample was submitted anonymously, and so the person who submitted it was able to like legally maintain their anonymity, and it was against the law for them to give up this person's identity or whatever. But like Austin police were like, but like this could be a murderer.
Exactly.
But
that's
they
so
were
silly.
like, but there's like thousands of people that this could match because of like the familial line and everything. And they were like, so it's not even gonna like be conclusive, like you know. But after they got a Texas congressman to kind of lean on the FBI a little bit, the FBI said, okay, fine. You send us your sample, and we'll test it against our sample, and then we'll let you know if they match. And according to them, after testing, it was not a match. So I don't know if that could have just been a starting place for them to like look into familial DNA.
Right.
But the other thing that I thought was kind of not great as far as like evidence gathering and like the trial and stuff was that like Daryl Croft, these witnesses from the yogurt shop, were not even questioned. And I thought,
that sounds like incredible police work.
That like Daryl Croft should have been able to like look at a lineup and tell them like if that Hinky kid
was one of those kids or
and you know the 2 people who had come in, well, I don't know, because they said the guys had their hoods up and they couldn't even tell whether they were men or not, but like I don't know, like at least like give them a chance to But anyway, so unfortunately that case remains unsolved. And you know, maybe someday they'll be able to figure it out, but I don't know.
Yeah.
With the crime scene being so
like
destroyed
obliterated,
and you know, things weren't handled correctly, and but it also was 1991. I don't know, so. But anyway, that's the horrible yogurt shop murders.
Well, fun fact, I did a Google.
Did a Goog?
Yes.
Okay.
TCBY stands for the country's best yogurt.
Oh.
But it originally stood for this can't be yogurt.
Oh my gosh.
But they got sued by a competitor.
Oh.
For having a very similar name.
Ooh.
I wonder who this competitor was.
I don't know. Perhaps ICBY?
Yes. So they had to come up with a different name using their initials.
Yeah. Because they were like, people already know our initials, so we've got to like turn it into something else.
So
kind of like in sync, they had to make up
a name for Lance to make us fit. But yeah, so yeah, it's officially the country's best yogurt, but it was originally this can't be yogurt.
I can't believe it's yogurt. There is like a very small New Mexico connection to this, and it's just that, you know, when they're like trying to find similar crimes, like to see if they can figure it out, they called Las Cruces about the bowling alley murders.
Yeah.
So, because that had happened, I don't know how long before this happened, but it had happened before this happened. So anyway, you're welcome for the bum out.
Well, thanks.
Yep. And you never know. These guys still could have had something to do with it. But...
Exactly. Like, it's so hard to know whether or not these guys are bad guys or not.
Yep.
There wasn't enough evidence either way, and
I guess you can just hope that maybe someday there's like a deathbed confession or
right.
some kind of new technology. Maybe time travel.
Yes.
We'll just invent time travel real fast and go back and see who it was.
We'll just do that for all the crimes.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe, like, energy detectives. Like, where, like, you could, like, go back and, like, talk to ghosts. I'm not saying that the girls are ghosts, but, like, maybe, like, their, like, energy is still tied to the place, and, like, I don't know.
There was an episode of Torchwood where they had this, like, special glove that would bring people back to life for, like, a minute or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could, like, bring people back to life really quick and, like, ask them what happened.
Mm-hmm. There. Maybe Doctor Who could get on that.
And then that's kind of like Pushing Daisies as well. Like, he can bring people back to life for a short amount of time. And so he was, like, helping to solve crimes by bringing people back to life for a minute.
Well, yeah. If somebody could figure that out, that'd be great. Or, like, I guess that wouldn't work, though. I was gonna say, what was the Grim Reaper show?
Dead Like Me.
Yeah, because, like, she was still her, just in a different body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, but she would have, like, these girls would have had to have, like, turned into the thing to be able to still be on the earth.
Yeah.
And I feel like they already would have figured out some way to tell somebody who killed them if that were the case.
Left a little note.
Right? Something. Yeah. So, anyway. That was not my favorite story.
No. Dead children are not usually a good time.
No, they're not. And I saw an interview, I can't remember which one's mom had said it, but it was after the guy's convictions had been overturned and about their constitutional rights, and she was like, every time I hear that, it makes me sick that their rights were violated. She was like, my children were murdered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about your rights.
Right.
And Eliza's mom has died since then, so even if they do figure it out, she'll never have known what happened. So, anyway, that sucks.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else before we end this?
No, I was just thinking when you were talking about mom that the other day I was...
Our mom?
Yeah.
Did I talk about our mom?
Well, you just said mom, and it made me think of our mom.
Oh, okay. Okay. You confused me. I was like, when did I talk about mom?
But, no. This has nothing to do with anything. It struck me funny that the other day I had watched either a podcast or like a episode of 48 Hours or something. I think it was a podcast though. And I don't even remember what the case was, but then later that evening I was dealing with the kittens or something, and mom had her TV on one of the crime channels that she watches, and whatever crime show she was watching was the exact same case that I had just watched.
Oh, yeah. Well, mom, again, the other night, she doesn't hear very well.
Yeah.
And so she claims we sneak up on her all the time, even though, like, we're literally just walking into the same room that she's in.
And I try to come up with ways
Me too.
to, like, not scare her. Like, earlier outside, like, I'll try to come from, like, the side where she sees me in her periphery.
Or slam the door, so maybe, I don't know.
But she still gets scared, and...
But I walked into her room, and she jumped, and it was more like yes, I startled her because she didn't hear me coming, but whatever crime show she was watching, she was spooked by.
Yeah.
Which is funny because she doesn't spook very easily. And she was like, I've seen this case on other crime shows and I know what's gonna happen, but it still spooks me every time.
Yeah.
and I don't know what it was. I'm going to have to go find it because I was like, maybe that one's good.
Right.
I mean, not like good.
No, but maybe that one's worth telling.
Yes. So anyway, you can find us on social media at Twisted and Mysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to put the word podcast in there or else it will go to a stranger. And
we're convinced that that's why we get no emails.
That's it.
Because you guys keep forgetting to put the word podcast. And so
That's
all of your emails that you send us.
All of them.
All the dozens and dozens of emails that we get are going to these strangers.
That's right.
That have nothing to do with our podcast.
And they're just like, why do these people keep emailing me?
Why do these random people keep telling us their creepy stories?
Yep. So that's got to be it. So make sure you put the correct words in there.
Also, tell all your friends so we can quit our jobs.
That's right. Please. Because retail is not for me.
No.
And
dealing with humans is not for me.
You know what? I think if we could just get somebody in South America to listen to us, that would like break the gate open.
I think so. I think that would be the catalyst to
I think that's
fame.
what it is.
So again, if you know anyone in South America, just get them to download one of our podcasts. I mean, I would prefer they listen to it, but
Absolutely.
if you could just get them to download one of our podcasts,
it's gonna break this whole thing wide open.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm sleepy and I have to edit this before I go to bed.
Yeah. So as always, remember that people are gross and please don't get murdered.